Hi everyone, welcome to Inverse Happy Hour. My name is Jake. Today we're speaking with Delilah Dawson, an excellent writer who you might know from a few Star Wars books, including Black Spire and Captain Phasma. She's written a lot of other great stuff too. Later we're going to hear from a section of Black Spire, which I'm really excited for. The paperback is coming out this month, right?
What? Yeah, June 30th.
June 30th, very exciting. Before then, we're going to talk about Star Wars, writing, other stuff. If you have any questions for Delilah about Star Wars, she knows everything about Star Wars, I'm just going to guess. So any questions?
About Star Wars, I wouldn't say everything. Something like, which exact droid was in behind scene number 738 in the Forgotten Scenes? And I'd be like, ah.
I'll take those ones. I got it. So yeah, any questions about Star Wars, writing, yes, put them in the comments and I'll ask them. And in the meantime, my first question, I know Black Spire takes place in the Galaxy's Edge Park, which
Yes.
I have not been to, but I'm dying to. Have you been to Galaxy's Edge?
Oh, I have. I am so fortunate. I got to go to the Disneyland, the official opening, the one where like George Lucas and all of them, like Han Solo was there, like the actual actor, like the real people were there. It was amazing, and we got to do everything the first night. And then I actually got to go to kind of a full week of events around the opening at Disney World because I'm in Florida. I'm pretty close in. So we got to do so many cool things. So yeah, I have been to Savvy's and made my lightsaber. I have been to Oga's and had my favorite drink. I have ridden all the rides. I have gotten to meet Vi. We are big mutual friends. Like we're such fangirls for each other. So yeah, it's incredible. I miss it so much. Like I feel like it's just a place that I could visit right now if I could just get in the car. Oh.
God, I wish. It's not open yet. It's coming. What color is your lightsaber?
Oh, purple.
Purple. Oh, like Mace Windu. I like it.
It's purple, and then it's like the nature one, so it's got like a, the tusk at the end and some kind of like, kind of looks like a Viking lightsaber.
Very cool. Yeah, I got to get out there. I was going to ask this a bit later. Someone already asked. I'm really curious about how you became a Star Wars novelist. Seems like a pretty cool job.
Black magic.
Black magic. So what kind of spells do I need to cast to get this gig?
Yeah, no, so, I mean, I've always been a Star Wars fan. It's always been part of my life from when I, like, threw up on the Star Wars sheets when I was 4. So, I started my career as a writer. My first series was a romance series, like a steampunk vampire romance series in 2012. And then I wrote some YA, and then I wrote, some various fantasy stuff, and I started to get into IP. I wrote a Shadow Man story. And then my friend Chuck Wendig tweeted that he wanted to write a Star Wars book, and within a year he'd written a Star Wars book. And I was like, oh, that's all you have to do? So I like tweeted, I was like, I want to write a Star Wars book. And like, amazingly, they didn't email me that day. So like
really?
that same thing. Yeah, I lived in a rural area, and I went to a Walmart that day because that was our only grocery store within 40 miles. And there was a single cupcake with a Darth Vader plastic ring in it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to buy that. And I'm going to put it in the freezer, and I'm not going to eat it until I get invited to do something for Star Wars. And every day I'm just going to like think about it and be like, oh, cupcake. And so I did this, and then like, I had my agents and my books to the Del Rey editors who do Star Wars. I asked a couple of friends who write Star Wars to put in a good word for me if a moment came available for that. I didn't hear anything, and I was like, well, screw this. I got the cupcake when I was like, like I Cookie Monstered it, and I still have the ring. And the next day, I got an email about writing Bazine Natal for the perfect weapon. So Black Magic and Cupcake.
The cupcake did it. Although maybe having your agent send your book to the publishers helped too. That's a good trick.
That might help. Also, it turns out the editor who bought my very first series back in 2011 didn't actually get to edit the book because she left for a different job, which was to be an editor at Lucasfilm. So I already had someone over there who had liked my first series and have to pay for it. So I had many cheerleaders.
Nice. One more Galaxy's Edge question from the same guy, Nick Forrester, who's watching. Thanks, Nick. If we do make it to Galaxy's Edge, what's the one thing that you can't miss?
Oh my God. I mean, like, I would say actually meeting Vi Moradi and interacting with her. Because we've all you see Mickey Mouse walking around Disney World, and you see Princess Tiana or Cinderella's stepsisters, and you get to interact with them. But like when you're in Galaxy's Edge and you are seeing the sights of being in the Star Wars world and smelling the smells of Star Wars world, and you can hear, you know, the Star Wars Palav Gadalhi radio show in the background, and then you're actually talking to a Star Wars character. And Chewie and Rey are there too, but Vi is the one who really hits me. Talking to her is so exciting, and you know, like she'll if you help her out, like if you help her evade stormtroopers, she will induct you into the Resistance, which is pretty awesome. Wow. So I'm in the Resistance. But everything there, like everything there is literally amazing. Some people don't also know there's an app through the Disney Play app on your phone where you can download a data pad, and then there's all things hidden around there where you can scan crates and see what's inside of them, and like give bounty hunter goods to people and choose light side or dark side, and you can hack the different robots. So like in front of Mubo's Droid Depot, you can hack the robots and they'll like beep at you. So there's all these wonderful things that you can keep going back and every time have something new.
It's really like the closest thing to actually going to Westworld, sounds like. I don't know if you've watched that show.
But nobody tries to kill you. Like the stormtroopers are kind of
like a PG-rated Westworld. So you wrote Black Spire, which is like all about Vi, who's this awesome sort of newer character. I think that's sort of the main avenue people know her besides the park. You also wrote about Captain Phasma, who is like a pretty prominent character in the new movies, which sounds like to me a more difficult process because you're taking something that people know a lot about and writing a book. So what's that like, and how much of a give and take is there with Lucasfilm on something like that?
Well, the thing about Phasma is we actually didn't know much about her, especially in that first movie. She never took her helmet off. We didn't even know, I think, she was a woman until she spoke. We just saw that silver trooper when the figures came out, and we're like, oh my god, I need that. So it was pretty mind-blowing, and we didn't see her until that last final moment in The Last Jedi. Yeah. So we didn't know, and that's part of the fun of this book, is that we did something different with it, which is that, you know, I work with, I have my editors at Del Rey, Elizabeth and Tom, who are incredible, and I just want to be their best friends and hang out all the time. And then we have the story group that we work with, and then there's some other, you know, Lucasfilm people with buy-in. And so you're sitting at this big conference table, and it's my job to make them all happy. But what we decided on this story was that we didn't want Phasma to be someone that you knew. It wasn't a book that was, you know, first person through her mind and what she's thinking, because the whole point of her is that we don't know what she's thinking, that she's mysterious, wears this mask on purpose. So the idea was to do kind of a 1001 Nights Scheherazade story where we don't hear Phasma firsthand, we hear the stories about her. So that was
it's other people talking about her, right? That's the framing device. Very cool.
Yeah, talking about her, like her rise, the planet where she came from, how she killed her way to the top, and then met some crash-landed First Order people. Armitage Hux, General Hux's father, Brendel, crash-landed on her planet. And so she meets him and realizes that, like, if I can help Brendel get back to his ship, I can get off this dying planet and become somebody. So you've got the First Order involved, and then these more primitive people on this kind of dead planet that's been killed by capitalism and strip mining. So who could ever imagine what that must be?
That never happens in the real world.
No.
If you're just tuning in or you're not sure what's going on, we've got Delilah Dawson, really cool author, wrote a bunch of Star Wars books. If you have any questions for her about Star Wars or writing or anything else, put them in the comments. I'll ask them. I have another question as like the preeminent Captain Phasma expert. Not to put you on the spot, but let's say Disney was making a Captain Phasma Disney Plus show. What would it be about? What do you think it should be about? What's the tone? What other characters are in it? Give me your pitch. I'm curious.
Well, the pitch for the book, for someone who hasn't read it, would be Mad Max Fury Road in the Star Wars universe.
Yes.
So yeah, like my playlist was topped by the Fury Road soundtrack, definitely. So if you were doing her younger life, I think it would be very Fury Road. It would give you that chance to, you know, if the Mandalorian is, you know, the Wild Western in Star Wars, this is the Mad Max in Star Wars. So there would be all sorts of chances for, you know, in my book, we've got, you know, like a droid cargo cult. We've got, you know, gladiatorial combat. We've got mutated animals, like all sorts of stuff like that. And I can't say too much because this is a book I pitched to my editors, but if we did something after The Last Jedi, because I haven't seen a body. I'm not convinced she's dead. Like, I made her I don't think she's dead. I would love to see her as a warlord on some planet where she's been like, you know what, the First Order's over, gonna vibe out of here, and goes somewhere else and just starts rising through the ranks again to take over.
I like it. It's like a sort of Thunderdome type scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another question from Mark, which also about writing Star Wars. But how much creative freedom do you have when you're writing a book like that?
Oh, a ton of freedom. You know, Phasma had a lot of freedom because outside of the parts with the First Order, there's a big part on her planet, which is basically get Phasma from, you know, where she's born to the ship. And like, so that's probably 60-70% of the book that was just me getting to play around in that world. So I had a lot of freedom. And then when I got to write Black Spire, you know, what we wanted to accomplish there was making basically a book that would introduce you to Galaxy's Edge, the theme park, and to Batu, the planet, if you couldn't go there, or if you wanted to read it before you went there and be able to say, oh, okay, this is the cantina, and it's run by Oga, and that's who Oga is, and this is the droid depot. You know, it's basically kind of, it's not your you know, Frommer's list, but it's definitely got that information for the travel savvy person. But the actual stories in there, they let me bring in Cardinal, who's a character I created for Phasma. He's the red stormtrooper. And I got to bring him back in Black Spire. But in addition to being kind of a travelogue, the two biggest influences on Black Spire are Brooklyn Nine-Nine, because it's kind of this, right? It's this funky group of outcasts trying to do some good on this wild planet. And that it's like they're a found family that pulls together, although they have nothing in common. And then the other half of the story is kind of where a thing I haven't seen as much in Star Wars as I would like to is the fact that we're talking about veterans of this like 30+ year war that keeps going. All of these people and rebels or whatever, like these are veterans with PTSD and wounds that can't be healed in a tank of Bacta. So there's some talk in there about healing from trauma, about working with your enemies and learning to find common ground, about how far you would go to convince the people on a planet like, hey, guess what? Fascism isn't awesome. What if you help me fight it? And they go, I have nothing. Stormtrooper, why should I worry about them? So yeah, the books definitely just go beyond, you know, exactly what Star Wars did. They gave me a lot of breadth to make these characters real.
That's great. Yeah, I feel like so much of the Star Wars fandom relies on these books and these sort of stories that fill in the gaps. I think it's great that Star Wars gives writers the freedom to sort of expand the lore. And there's just, you know, there's the movies, but then there's so much happening in the periphery. And it makes a lot of sense that you have a lot of, you know, what you write becomes canon to fans. And it's like, you know, it's almost a big responsibility. But it sounds like a lot of fun.
It's a huge responsibility. But to be fair, it's not like I write it and they print it the next day. There are a lot of safety nets. Like, this isn't Cirque du Soleil. There's like 7 safety nets, so I can't be super stupid. I remember in Phasma, most books with an author, you send your book to your editor and you come back with an editor's letter that's, you know, 14 pages single spice. This is great. We love it. Change all this. It's great. You're awesome. A Star Wars book comes back with like 17 people's thoughts in the comments, and it crashed the word. And like my computer just dropped and was like, I don't know.
Wow.
You know, and then like, and even that's just like 3 different people in story group arguing over whether or not a ship I had randomly chosen off Wikipedia could exist in that world. Where I'm just like, guys, I don't care. Just tell me the ship. I want to give it a cool name, but like, you can tell me which ship.
That's good you have that resource. You don't have to do it all yourself. So we have another question about V. Do you have any plans or intentions of continuing that story? And can you tell us where you might want to take it?
I can't, because I pitched a book to my editor that would be kind of the third in the Vi trilogy that I would love to tell that story. So like, it's, you know, it's something that I think if we get the chance to tell these stories, we definitely will. So I always have hope, just like the Rebellion.
I like it. I'm sure people would be excited to read that. One more Star Wars question from me, and this is one that maybe is not something you've written about, but it's just a question that I always think about. Who was Snoke? Where was he from? I feel like The Rise of Skywalker gave us a bit of a taste of that, but I'm curious what your opinion is as someone who's done a little digging into the lore of Star Wars. What's his deal and where did he come from?
I mean, that's, you know, I think of Star Wars almost like, you know, when you're a little kid and you go to the Halloween thing and they have that fishing game where you kind of throw the fake fishing pole over the line and somebody hooks some kind of sweet little trinket to the clothespin on the end of the fishing line. I think Star Wars is like that. If you give me any character in Star Wars, I think I could throw it over that she can come back and go, oh, this is so cool, I want to talk about this. So like Snoke, like what, we think he's this thing that Palpatine made up, but yet he's been living independently for a while. Like I would love to tell that story of like, you know, did they fetch him out of the vat like when, you know, Rick from Rick and Morty comes out of the vat as a 70-year-old man and is like, well, okay, let's go. Like, and then like, what's his first connection to Kylo Ren? Like, was he one of these creepers who was like, hey, 13-year-old dissatisfied boy, want to talk magic? Like, I don't know, but that would be a super fun story to tell. And if, you know, if there's not something in place for that, there would have to be.
I think there was a short run of comics before the movie that sort of filled that in. It's like a lot of like Kylo and Snoke hugged, very fatherly. It's a little weird. I would definitely read a whole book about it.
How would you hug that? It's like, it's like hugging a fishing rod. There's like gelatinous glitter in them. I don't want to hug that.
You know, I never thought about what it would feel like to touch Snoke. Probably not great.
What I loved was when they came out with the figure of him, and you look, he's got these like weird little turned up toe golden booties, and you're like, where does Snoke buy his shoes? Like little old man pajama shuffle shoes.
Oh, his outfit is great. I love that.
Yeah, go with these shoes.
I saw in an interview you did recently, you talked about having synesthesia, and I wanted to ask, how does that affect your writing? How does that change the way you write? I guess maybe you don't have an answer because you've always had it, but how does that factor into your writing?
Yeah, it factors in a lot of ways. So mine is number grapheme synesthesia. So letters and numbers have colors, words have colors, and then some words, sensations, feelings, numbers have like feelings. Like I don't like 5, I don't trust 5. It's this beautiful cerulean blue and I hate it. Whereas 2 is like my favorite number, and it's this really ugly color that looks like young Simba from The Lion King, but I'm like, oh, that 2 is a good boy, and so is 4, but I hate 5. They're not the colors I would choose, and both my kids have synesthesia, and they'll be like, 7 is not green, and I'll be like, 7's been green since 1982, and I don't want to hear it. When I'm writing, it reminds me that, you know, when you walk into, say, like, when we walk into the marketplace of Black Spire Outpost in Batu for the first time, I'm not just going to tell you what you see. I'm going to tell you the smells and the sounds and the feelings that they evoke. When I name a character, like in Star Wars, I've named planets, characters. I love naming animals. It's like my favorite thing. But, you know, I'll think about the name for a couple of days and walk around going, Wabla, Wimplu, Warbla, like looking for the right feel. So things really definitely have to feel right. Even when I gave the stormtroopers their numbers in Phasma, like, the number had to feel like that stormtrooper's personality to me, because certain numbers have personalities. So it definitely plays into it. And I think also maybe in some of my metaphors it comes across that way too. Like I remember the house I grew up in, it was my grandparents' house, and it had this carpet that was like that 70s shag carpet. And like there's something I think I've described before in the book, is like it tasted exactly like 70s shag carpet, because that's what that word feels like. So it's in there.
Very cool. Cool. Sounds like I mean, I can only imagine what it feels like. All right, my producer Evan. Sorry.
I thought I just got in trouble for telling everybody that W wasn't yellow, but then we found out, and I was like, oh, thank God.
So my producer Evan is listening and wants to ask you, what's your favorite strange Star Wars creature?
Oh man, I mean, I like the cute stuff. Like my entree into Star Wars, like yes, I had those sheets that everybody has, you know, but because back in the early 80s you couldn't just click on your TV and be like, I want to watch the latest Star Wars movie. Like you either saw it in the theater or you waited until a Sunday at 3 p.m. when somebody played it with commercial breaks, and then your dad would walk in and be like, I want to watch the news, and you'd never find out, right? We did not have the world at our command. So the first Star Wars story I really one-on-one connected with was the Ewok Adventure, because it was on at night, on a school night, and I got to stay up late to watch it. And I was like, oh my God, it's killer teddy bears, and a little girl is the hero. Like, I had no idea that you could do this. So like that, like I still got my Princess Misa, I had Paplu and Wicket, and you know, Baby Nippet, and like, so into the Ewoks. So I like cute things. So yeah, I'm super into the Porgs. I love Lothcats. The first thing I bought at Galaxy's Edge was the Puffer Pig. I love Converse. Yeah, I'm super down for cute stuff and any of those things. I'll tell you my favorite one though. I was fortunate enough to get to write some Star Wars Adventures and Star Wars Forces of Destiny comics for IDW. And because at the time I was the only woman who could write comics who had read the script for The Last Jedi, they needed a Rose Tico story for Forces of Destiny, so I got to write it. And in that story, I created a bird, like this goony bird that's like half goat, half ostrich that they ride, like in the Swiss Family Robinson. Like they're riding this, like it's like an ostrich with like goat ears. It's nuts. And so like I love doing stuff like that where a kid could see it and think, oh my God, this is so fun. This is for me, you know, because Star Wars is from everybody. I want to lure them in with the cuteness, just like I was lured in.
100%. I agree. Star Wars is for kids. I mean, it's for everyone, but it's for kids. I think that's very true. All right, last question from Nick, who's watching. Do you think
squonks. There we go. Kathy's got it. They were called squonks after something like a bird I drew for my husband. Yes, squonks. Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, from Nick. Last question, I promise.
I'll keep going on.
I want to hear this reading, though. Did Anakin just need a therapist?
I mean, there wasn't a moment of Anakin's life that wasn't built on trauma. Like that poor little boy, it's like, hey, you're born a slave to like this creeper weirdo. That's fine. Oh, some random strangers, like Space Knight magician showed up and took you away. That's fine. Then this group of adults looked at you and was like, you're not good enough. And then you were like, hey, I think that this, you know, you've told me I had this connection with the Force. I think my mom might be dying. And they're like, no, that's cool. It's fine. That's fine. Jedis don't need love. Whatever. You know, like, every life was traumatic. So, like, I especially thought of this, you know, I wrote the Skywalker Saga, which is this kind of fairy tale storybook type illustration of the first 8 movies. And I'd never before watched the movies in order, episodes 1 through 8, like watching each one 6 times in a row over the course of 3 or 4 days, like taking notes. And like, it killed me when you watch Anakin, like in order multiple times, hearing like the echoed words and the echoed themes, like that kid didn't have a chance. So I don't know if therapy so much as like, if maybe the Jedi had been like, hey bud, it seems like you're messed up. Want to talk about it? Instead of saying, emotions and love are forbidden.
I feel like Yoda is the worst therapist of all time.
Here's over here, right over here. Where is he? No, yeah, so here's my little Darth Vader. So
oh yeah, there it is.
Late time Anakin hanging out.
Oh,
3 feet tall, traumatized.
Yeah, I think you're right. Maybe Yoda's whole thing is like not helping in this situation. It's too much.
Yeah, everyone failed him. Like everyone failed. They were so busy being like, "You're the one," that they're like, "Oh, you're a person with a brain and feelings." Oh, it kills me.
All right. Well, on that note, we're gonna do a reading from Star Wars Galaxy's Edge Black Spire, which comes out on paperback on June 30th.
And can I make a small announcement, a small secret special announcement?
Oh my God, please.
No. This book includes a secret short story that I begged to write that nobody knows about.
Wow.
It is called Return to a Shattered Planet. And it is the story of Vi going back to Parnassus to rescue Civ and her daughter Torvi. Civ is the character that told Phasma's story that came from Phasma's planet. And so we told Phasma's story to Vi. And so Vi has to go back and rescue them along with Creaky and Pook. So there is your secret.
All comes together. Are you going to read us that now, or are you going to read us... no, it's too important.
Yeah, no, that's you got to buy the book. You want that that special scene there, and it also it doesn't mean that much more if you've read both of the books. So
that makes sense.
I think Vi's introduction to Oga Gara is kind of the mobster gang leader of Black Spire, and she's a character that's mentioned several times in the land who owns Oga's Cantina, but you never see her. So I thought I would read the page where we actually see her on the page, because many people who have been to Black Spire don't know her story.
That sounds great. All right. If you're still here, thanks for sticking it out. I hope you had fun. We're going to listen to Delilah Dawson read a passage from Galaxy's Edge Black Spire on Inverse Happy Hour. Delilah, take it away.
All right. Here we go. Vi and Salju finished their drinks, took their glasses back to the bar of Oga's cantina, and headed out the door. As soon as they were outside, Vi sensed danger. Everyone in the market was staring at something across the street from the cantina. "Where the hell have you been?" came a raspy, gurgling voice that somehow managed to chill Vi to the bone. The language Hadith, which of course Vi understood. A figure stepped out from the shadows, a Blutopian, Vi knew, thanks to her extensive training on alien species. "That's Ogagara," Salju whispered, surprised. "It's a rare thing seeing her out and about." Oga, like all Blutopians, was a curious sort of person to human eyes. The local crime boss had wrinkled, leathery skin that faded from gray to a fleshy salmon, and her mouth was a mess of pinkish tentacles that constantly moved in a peevish sort of way and reminded Vi of a can of angry worms. Her back was hunched, but her flipper-like arms had thick hands that looked capable of crushing skulls. She wore a belted tunic and vest that Vi was certain had come from Arda's shop, along with cargo pants and brown boots. Her eyes were small black dots, but she somehow managed to look crafty and dangerous. Up on a balcony, a Wookiee had emerged from the arched door of an apartment that seemed to be the focus of Oga's wrath. The Wookiee's hair was mussed. He was in the middle of buckling on a bandolier, and despite his general lack of expressive facial features and her tenuous grasp of Shiriwook, Vi could tell that he was embarrassed and frightened. "Taking an afternoon nap in the room assigned to that new Rhodian waitress Miba? The same one I saw you giggling with in the back booth last week when you assured me you were merely discussing the going rate for Corellian champagne?" "Rah!" the Wookiee roared. "Well, what was it then? Were you fixing the bathroom for her? Oh, I don't know, navigating some other sort of personal plumbing issue?" Whispers had started up, and the Blutopian spun around, blaster ready. "This is between me and Doran," she warned them. "I can't make you leave, but I can accidentally shoot you." The locals didn't seem to understand Huttese, but the sentiment was clear in any language. Their whispers went silent, and several of the more timid folk blended back into the shadows or scuttled behind half-closed doors to continue watching. "Roga," the Wookiee crooned, putting his hands on a low metal railing and leaning down as if to give his lady love a flower and beg for her favor. Oga turned away, waving a hand as if to disperse him. "Don't you Oga me, you walking catastrophe! Get off my planet and don't ever come back, or I'll mount your head on the bar with the droids." Doran stood back up and smoothed the hair around his face. "Grah." Vi didn't know much Shiriwook, but that sound of scorn and dismissal was about the same in all languages. Without another word, Oga spun around and shot the Wookiee in the chest. Doran's hands, or paws, Vi didn't know what was under all that hair, clutched at the smoking wound. The Wookiee's eyes went wide with surprise, and he gently toppled over the rail, breaking the aged metal as he tumbled into space and fell with a heavy thump at Oga's feet. The Blutopian knelt, pinched him somewhere, and muddled, "Good riddance." Then almost to herself, "Why do I always fall for the big hairy bad boys?" A new figure appeared in the open apartment door. The tall female Rhodian was wrapped in only a small pink towel, but she screamed bloody murder as she stared down at the dead Wookiee. Oga glanced up briefly, aimed her blaster, and shot a bolt within centimeters of the Rhodian's antennae. "You're fired! Get out of here! I'm keeping this week's wages as your formal apology." The Rhodian disappeared, and Oga silently looted her former lover's body. She slung the Wookiee's bandolier over her shoulder and stood. "Anybody who doesn't want to eat lasers should probably stay out of my way today," she said. Everyone else found something else to look at, or somewhere else to go, and the Blutopian disappeared into the shadows around the edge of the cantina, her shoulders hunched. The busy market went back to normal, but the sort of normal that involved completely ignoring a smoking Wookiee corpse. "So that was Oga," Salju said again, "and you definitely don't want to talk to her today. maybe not this week or month,